What about ye? And in the garage today we have a Toyota Aygo, and these are a wee, like a city car, you know, a wee small car. And this one here has an R plate on it. So the R plate thing is Northern Ireland. It's a Northern Ireland thing. As far as I know, we're the only people that do that. And what that means is whenever somebody passes their driving test, they're then restricted, R for restricted. So on the back side of that will be an L, a red L for learner. And then whenever they pass their test, they flip that over and it displays the R. So by law, you have to display an R at the front and an R at the back. And that occurs for a year. So you have to display those for a year after passing your driving test. And you're only allowed to do 45 miles an hour, even on the motorways. So this wee car is owned by a young girl who is starting university, I believe. And the father bought it. And they've just bought it out of the dealer. And yeah, it's immaculate, you know. It's really good, Nick. Really clean inside, and that there is a wee insurance box as well that monitors the speed and stuff, keeps insurance premiums down. And this wee car has, let me see, 37,000 miles on it. And the customer complaint, and you're probably not going to hear this, but you can feel it in the clutch pedal. Whenever you push the clutch pedal in, it's making a noise, you know, and you probably can't hear it, but you can feel it, you know, when you're coming through your foot. So obviously you're not going to feel that. But the thing goes into gear okay, you know, drives okay. It's not slipping or anything like that. But it's just making this noise, and then there's a feedback in the pedal, you know, which you can feel through your foot. So as with most cars that I get in here, this car has a backstory. So the owner, they've owned this car maybe a couple of months, I think. It's a 2015 model year. There's 37,000 miles on it. All seems great. But he didn't notice, as far as I know, when he bought the car, that this clutch pedal didn't feel right to him. And they says, "Oh, don't worry about that. We'll sort that out for you," and all that. So he rang me up and asked me what I think. And I says, "Well, you have to give them the opportunity to remedy it. You know, you have to give them the opportunity." So he took it back, and they had it a few days, and he picked it up, and basically, well, as far as the owner was concerned, they didn't do anything. It was exactly the same. So I'm suspecting, have they actually looked at this, or I don't know. So we'll have a wee look around here. I have the battery out of this, so I just noticed a couple of things, so we'll maybe show you. So somebody's definitely been in here. We have a bolt missing on this bar box here. You can see, you know, clips have been out and stuff, and in here we have bolt loose, bolt not tightened. So perhaps they have just been in to adjust the clutch cable, and they've taken this battery tray out. So we'll go ahead and take all this stuff out, and we'll have a look at this clutch lever and see if we can determine where this noise is coming from. Is it in the cable, or is it in the box? To maybe let you hear this a wee bit better, we'll put a microphone on the clutch release lever first of all. So to narrow this down a wee bit, I'll move the microphone to the actual clutch cable itself and see if there's any difference in the noise. Right, so with the clutch cable disconnected, this is the arm here. So I think most of the noise is coming from in the gearbox, or you know, associated with this arm. So there's a wee bit of play in the thrust bearing. And it is rough. Just moving it back and forward with my fingers there. So I went ahead and pulled the gear bag out of this thing, and just first inspection here, we can sort of hear that wee noise there. So we have some information on this, and it basically says that early ones of these had a dodgy release fork, a dodgy spindle, and it says they replaced them. Also that the clutch was upgraded from 180mm to 190mm clutch assembly, and tells you to grease that bit where it's sticking. And there's a bit about adjusting the cable. What's that? That's the same thing. So yeah, that's fine. So look at this. Drivers also complain about clutch noise. This is attributed to release bearing squeak when it's caused by heavy worn clutch cover diaphragm spring and a broken release bearing tab. This may make the clutch feel heavy and difficult to engage gear. Well, there's a couple of things. This bulletin is applicable to cars up to 2014, which is the Toyota Aygo 1. This car that we have on the ramp is a Toyota Aygo 2, and it's model year 2015. And according to our information, that this vehicle has a 200mm clutch in it, and the 180, 190 isn't applicable, and these parts as well are not applicable for the Toyota Aygo Mark II, the facelift version, slightly different front on it. So what I might do is take this clutch plate off and measure it, but there's something else I've noticed. This is an LUK clutch on this car. There it is again, LUK. Now, when I've bought a replacement clutch for this car, and according to our data anyway, LUK doesn't make a clutch for this car. So we've bought an XED clutch, and there's the bearing on it. Made in Japan. Now it looks the same, for sure. Looks identical. And Japan, NSK bearing. Good job. And if I look at the box, it says this is a 200mm plate, which is what I expected. I think some listings show it as 201 or something like that, but 200mm, made in Japan. So that technical bulletin talks about the original clutch in these Toyotas, Toyota Aygos, and Peugeot Citroëns, and all that it'll carry on. That also have this car was originally 180mm, and they upgraded it to 190mm because the clutches were lasting like 20,000 miles, and they were goosed, and people were having problems with these clutches. So this is a 2015 model year car. That information that I showed you there only goes up to 2014, which is a Toyota Aygo Mark 1, this is a Toyota Mark 2, blah blah blah, and I don't know, we'll pull that LUK off and measure it. Okay, so that's the old clutch, and well, when I said LUK didn't make it, well, it says Toyota on this, and it's like new. Now, the owner bought this from the dealer, and the dealer told him that this clutch had been replaced already. And, well, I don't know what the owner sort of said, he didn't really believe him. Now, this car, the complaint is this creaking noise whenever you put the clutch pedal in. It does change gear okay, and, you know, it doesn't slip and all that old jazz. But, okay. And yeah, it's 200mm. So when we look at this fork, so the release burn off obviously, and there's a wee circlip down the bottom here, and that'll allow us to take this out and let's have a look at it. But the only thing, well, we'll dress all that up, and close inspection of this, well, I don't see anything wrong with it. But the only thing is this sleeve of the gearbox is all scraped. So there's no ridges on it. You can see it's all discolored there. So the release burn that was in this is an NSK made in Japan, exactly the same as the one we have in the new kit. So that's the old one, and there's nothing wrong with it. So the only thing that I can see is this sleeve hasn't been greased, and this is catching on it. Here's a new one. Let's try the old one again. Yeah. So there's a wee tiny wee taste of wear on the inside here, because this has been catching on it. So there's not much we can do here. This is part of the gearbox, so we'll just dress that up. Yes, cleaned up rightly, so pretty happy with that. But now I have another quandary. On this thing here that we looked at earlier on, there's a wee bit on this about greasing this sleeve. So when fitting new release burn, you must follow these guidelines. Apply clutch spline grease to the input shaft splines. So that's clearly the splines there. Do not apply grease to the release bearing or other parts of the input shaft. Right? And then the manufacturer's a third built, which highlights the lifetime of the clutch disc can be extended further. Clutch pedal free play is checked and adjusted. If there is no free play, clutch disc wear increase. Well, that's standard stuff with cable adjustment. So, right, okay, I'm right. Well, I think that I always put a wee film of grease on these. That's what I do, and I'm going to grease, put a wee taste of grease, and you know, any moving parts. Now, whenever you're greasing stuff in around here, it's a film. It's just a coating, you know. So you don't want grease to get onto the clutch disc. That's it. Now, When I do any clutch, I always grease this so that, you know, it'll move in and out nice and freely. I think in this case, you know, clearly in this case, you know, it hasn't been greased, and, you know, we've ended up with this problem. And, you know, I've checked other data that I have, and it says go to grease it. So I'm going to do that. Tell us what you think in the doobly-doo. Any of the guys do a lot of clutches? Grease that or not grease that? So I spoke to the customer and says, there's nothing really wrong with this clutch, but what do you want to do? And he says, stick the Japanese clutch in, and we'll do a complete change here, you know. So it did say that LUK, well, in the aftermarket, they don't seem to sell this clutch. Well, here's a Toyota 200mm outside diameter clutch. So the previous versions, as I said, were 180mm. They upped that to 190mm, which is basically the Toyota Yaris clutch they started putting in it. But this is an Aygo 2, so this is a 200mm diameter clutch, and that is what is in this car. So I was thinking that it was maybe the wrong clutch was put in this. However, what I can tell you is that this car, these Toyota Aygos have a shared platform with Peugeot and Citroën, and some of these gearboxes are made in France, and LUK is a French company, as far as I know. Main factory is in France, so yeah. So maybe LUK are making these exclusively for Toyota. But anyway, we have a Japanese clutch in it now. Alright then. Smooth as. Definitely lovely and smooth now. Yeah. If you ever do one of these wee boxes, or one like this, in the Peugeot, Citroën, Aygo, Citroën C1, whatever the Peugeot one is, I'm not sure. To get that fork into that release burn, or thrust burn, whatever you want to call it, you're far better taking that shaft out the top. There's a circlip below here, and that shaft just lifts out. Gives you an opportunity to give it a clean up. But you see the fork, the separate bit, click the bearing into that first, because if you try to force that over, it's all cockeyed, it's all, you know, and it jams up. So what I'm thinking is, did the previous fitter then sort of force this thrust burn on, you know, with the release lever and fork still in situ, because you really need to take that out and as I say, put the fork on the bearing, and then put the bearing on, and then put the shaft in. Works out dead easy that way. So that's the gear bag back in again, and this one here I had to do it a wee bit differently from I usually do it. I had to support the engine from below, which I don't usually do when I'm doing gearboxes, because I usually put a cross beam adapter, you know, across the top and hold the engine from the top. But this wee car is all headlights. The headlights go near enough to the top of the struts. You know, that's this fancy design here. There's the top of the strut, and there's the headlight. So I'm not going to put the crossbeam on top of the headlight, clearly. So just a wee bit more to do there, you know. And in this one, I didn't take the subframe out because, well, if you take the rod fan out there, it just about clears it, just about drops out. And there it is. But just one wee point to note here. I said earlier that these burns were identical. Well, on first inspection, they did look identical, but they're not. They're slightly different. The new one doesn't have this long thing here. The new one is only about half that, and that spring's a wee bit different. It sort of goes out and round. It only goes in one way because this fits into a wee recess in the fork. But definitely this bit here is different on the new one. and it hasn't got that wee lip there either. And I don't know whether that is an update to solve this issue, you know, because clearly it's starting to sort of rust there in there, if we can see it, you know, and maybe that didn't help matters. So it looks like that's an updated part there, even though it's the exact same manufacturer. If we can get it in the shot, yeah, NSK Japan. So that's the old one. Right, that's her all back to her again. So I took the boots off, got changed into, well, cleanish clothes, and we'll take her for a test drive here in a wee second. I'm not going to take you along with me, but sure, I think I've proved the point anyway. So an awful lot lighter to push, you know, so not as much force, not creaking, and you see a wee bit of play in it. So you want about an inch with a cable clutch. You want about an inch of play there in the pedal. So the new oil in the gearbox and all that jazz, you know. Make sure the brakes are pumped up. All right, so well, I'd maybe like to hear the noise from the engine there, with the engine off, or lack thereof, off, hopefully. Right, we'll see how noisy it is now. I'll put the microphone back onto this lever again. So what do we conclude from all this? Well, it does appear that LUK does make a clutch for this Toyota Aygo 2, albeit they don't list it on their website, and they don't list it on the aftermarket parts supplier that I use. What else? Yeah, it looks like there's an upgraded release burn. That's, you know, even though it's the same manufacturer, NSK Japan, the release burn that I got with that XCD clutch kit was slightly different, very, very slight in the way that it was mounted to the fork, you know. So yeah, is this a known problem then? Don't know. I think, you know, that the input shaft sleeve, you know, tiny wee film, the grease, whatever it is, you know, it's amazing how much lighter the pedal feels underfoot now that the release burn is able to go in and out, you know. So people, I think, with heavy clutches and stuff like that, they maybe blame the cable on a cable release system, but it's a lot of times I think it's the release burn sticking in and out on that input shaft. So anyway, there you go. Maybe you got something out of it. Hope you enjoyed the video. All the best, and
High five.
high five.